A man named Forrest Whitcraft, not witchcraft, Whitcraft. He was an administrator for the Boy Scouts, gave these words of wisdom about priorities. I didn't tell you my title, or did I? Maximizing Our Heritage. I'm talking about that still, but I'm talking about a mother's heart today. A mother's heart. He gave these words of wisdom about priorities. Oh, he had some words. 100 years from now, it will not matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove. But the world may be different because I was important in the life of a child. The hand that rocks the cradle still rules the world. Amen. Amen. Mary brought that little boy into the world. It changed everything. It changed everything. And Calvary became the intersection between mankind and God. Everybody has to pass by way of Calvary. They have to pass at that intersection, and they have to answer the age-old question, what will I do with this man called Jesus? Pilate had to answer that question. And as far as we can tell, he made the wrong choice. Now, prophecy had to be fulfilled, but as far as the personal response, doesn't appear like he made the right choice. We've got to make the right choice. To wind up in the right place, we've got to make the right choice. What the heart is to the body, the mother is to the home. The godly mother pumps spiritual lifeblood into her kids every single day with her love, her discipline, and her example of simply being like Jesus. The father may function as the head of the home, the overall control center, if you will, but it is that mother that daily, on a daily basis, she pumps things into her children. And they become what we pump into them. They become what we pump into them. They become what we allow to be around them. Children are understanding. Children are forgiving. They do not expect 100% perfection, but they have a very low tolerance level for hypocrisy. They understand that we're going to make mistakes. They understand that we're not perfect. But they don't understand us saying one thing and doing another thing and trying to justify it. They don't understand that. That puts confusion into the heart of a child. And so many times they do not, as they get older, they do not serve God because of that. No matter what the world's value system says, it is a high and a holy calling. And ladies, it is the most important job that you'll ever have. You may do a lot of things that are of great importance in this area or that area, but no job even comes close to your role as a mother. I don't care what the world has to say about it. The world is wrong. The world is wrong. Satan knew what he was doing when he got into the household a long time ago. He knew what he was doing. When he knew, especially into the 60s, he made it sound so good, free love and love the one you're with, and if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with, and no strings and no responsibilities. And we have reaped the whirlwind ever since in the family. We have reaped the whirlwind. My mother-in-law will tell you this. Women used to have it made. All they had to do was stay at home and take care of the family. She says, now we have to go out to work and take care of the home and the family. Said, we got sold a bill of goods. We got sold a bill of goods. If a stay-at-home mom could be compensated in dollars instead of personal satisfaction and love, she would make over $138,000 a year. Nice thought. But instead of receiving deposits, mothers continually make deposits, and not just deposits, but enormous deposits into their children's spiritual accounts for good or for bad. We are all spirit beings. And what is accomplished in us in large measure, I thank people. People say you've got good kids. I don't have perfect kids. I do have good kids, and I'm thankful for Sean, Marie, and Heath this morning. They've never shamed us. They've never shamed us. They've honored us, and I appreciate that. But so much of what you see is their mother and not me. So much of what you see is Sister Dotson and not me. She will, and she will tell you this. I will still yet today, even though they're legal. You know what that 18 means to my wife? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. She will still get in their face and will tell them. I've used the expression. She said, I don't pick my battles. If it's of any importance at all, I fight every battle because these are my kids. These are my kids. And there's no more important place that I could invest in myself than in my kids. There's no more important place. No more important place. Make deposits. Make the good deposits. We're told that all of us have an internal bank account, so to speak, and we're either depositing into it all the time or we're withdrawing from it all of it. However, there's an ebb and a flow generally. But oh God, help us where we're concerned and where our children are concerned to be making as many positive deposits into that account and as few negative withdrawals as is possible. Your words are of so much importance to your children. If we are told, and I don't mean flattery, I mean edification. That's what the Bible tells us. Everything is to be done in the church to edification, to the building up of the body. Now sometimes that means telling us things we don't want to hear, but it's overall to the good, to the edification. Our children need to be edified. How many kids amounted to nothing because they were told they were worth nothing all of their lives? Oh God, help us today. Oh God, help us today. When you speak to your children, when you speak to Levi and to Luke, when you speak to Michaela and Keone and Malachi, when you speak, parents, grandparents, when you speak to these children, speak words of greatness. You're going to do great things for God. You're going to do, we're laying a foundation right. You are going to do greater things for God. If He tarries, you're going to do greater things for God than what I have ever done. That's the kind of things that they need to hear. There doesn't need to be doubt implanted in the minds of, I don't know. Don't ever tell your kids, I don't know what to do with you. Even if you don't know in your mind at that moment exactly what to do with your child, don't tell them that. Don't give them any kind of an inkling that you might be giving up on them or you're exasperated with them. With the help of the Lord, we'll find out what to do with our kids. We may go through rough times. We may go through rocky patches, but with the help and the grace of God, He's going to help us determine what to do with our children. Could you give the Lord a hand clap of praise this morning? He's there to help us. He's there to help us. He's not there, Sister Pat, to leave us alone. Oh no, He's there to help us. He's there to help us. 1 Samuel 2:18. But Samuel, just as a little shaver. I said, where'd that name come from? Well, that popped up not too long ago. What is a little shaver? It's just a little fella. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child. I know that they got dismissed to class just a few moments ago, but I looked up there and it was, I think maybe Keone and Malachi back there. But you know, we made a joke out of here a while back. Samuel said as soon as they're out of diapers, we put them up behind a camera or something. But that's not too much of a joke. It's not too much of a joke, but we believe that you put them to use in the kingdom of God. We believe that you strap something on them or sit them or assign them at some kind of a post of duty. Give them a responsibility. Give them some kind of a sense of accountability. Give them a sense of ownership. This is my church. And the more that you can put their roots down in this thing when they are young, the harder it's going to be for them to leave this thing. Don't give them the sense you have to be 18 or 25 or 30 before you can do something in God's house. No, I can do something in God's house now. I'm valuable now. I'm valuable now. I think that he showed me this little clip here a while back, but Sister Dotson showed it to me this morning. And many of you probably know the name of Lou Holtz, who was coach at Notre Dame for several several years, and it's been a few years back now, but he was evident. He had on his, like a graduation type robe, so I guess he was the commencement speaker at some kind of a college or something, and he talked about, he said, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. No disrespect. He said, I was born in West Virginia. He said, I was born, that's where I was born too, so, just barely. They took me across the Kentucky line into West Virginia because that's where the closest hospital was. I was born there too, so I know I can say that. But he said, we were in maybe, a 2 or 3 room house. He said, my mama and my daddy and my sister and me, we shared one room. And he said, we were in that house for, I don't know, maybe the first 7 years of his life or something. He said, I always had plenty to eat. He said, when I asked for seconds, Dad said, you've had plenty. You've had plenty. He talked about, said evidently times were lean and so forth. But he said, the thing about it, he said, in America, and this is still true today, in America, you have got so many opportunities that are just laid before you. And he talked about the principle of personal accountability. We've got to dismiss this stuff from the church that everybody owes you something, and the church is merely there just to be some kind of a spiritual welfare system. Yes, God blesses. Yes, He takes care of His people. Yes, we're here to serve, and we're here to serve one another. Certainly all of that is true, but what did God say? When I'm going to pour out my Spirit upon you, you're going to become witnesses. You're going to become laborers. You're going to become workers in my kingdom. You're not going to be people that just make it once or twice a week, and then all the time you're looking for something to get offended over. We got to get beyond that. People that have that mindset, they're not going to last in this thing. Right before the Lord comes back, the remnant of that's going to get swept out of God's church. They're going to be somewhere else, but they're not going to be in God's real church. In God's church, there are workers there. There are laborers there. There are people that say, where's a tool that you can put in my hand? Where's a job that I can do? What can I do for the kingdom's sake? And the sooner and the quicker that we can get that into the minds of our church, the better off that all of us will be. Give them a sense of ownership in God's house. Oh, praise God. He ministered before the Lord, just being a child, girded with a linen ephod, a simple garment of ministry was all that he had. Moreover, his mother, you got to remember this, Hannah put him in the hand. After he was weaned, he couldn't have been very old. We think maybe 3 years old, maybe. She took him up and gave him, because she'd made a vow, Brandy, unto God. If you give me a man child, I'll loan him to the Lord all the days of his life. So she took that little boy, that little shaver, and put him in the hand. Put his hand, so he put him in God's hand. Well, she did. But God's hand at that point was Eli. The priesthood was kind of shaky at that time. She put him in the hand. She trusted God and put that little hand in the hand of that aged priest. And it's funny, Eli had 2 sons that were devils, but he raised a good Samuel. Figure that one out. But every year, Hannah made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year. Every year, new coat. When she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife. Heath was preaching about Joseph Wednesday night, and we had talked about it as he's kind of shared his notes with me some. I said, man, Joseph reminds me of Elkanah. Not a whole lot said about him, but could you imagine if these guys were taken out of the story narrative? Huh. Can you imagine being an unwed mother in the days of Mary? No. But he blessed him, and he said, the Lord give thee seed of this woman. See, as imperfect as Eli was, he was still used of God to pronounce a blessing upon them. The Lord give thee seed of this woman for the loan which is lent to the... God sees everything. He sees every single honest-hearted effort, Sister Ashley, that you do. Sometimes we may get overwhelmed. Sometimes we may get depressed. Sometimes we may feel like I'm working all the time. I can't make it to God's house near as often as I want to. Sometimes I may feel somewhat isolated. So we have all these kinds of feelings that we have to deal with. But God comes alongside of us and He says, I know just exactly where you are, and I know just exactly how to get a hold of you, and I know just exactly how to breathe upon you, and I know just exactly how to fill you with words to speak to your children, because I've got plans for them to do great and mighty exploits for me. Sister Kimberly, let me tell you this morning, we don't get to see Sophie near as much as what we would like to see her, but every time that little baby's hand gets put in your hand, start speaking Jesus words to her. Start telling her about the goodness of God, that His name is Jesus, and that one day you can be filled with His Spirit, and you can grow up in His house, and you can marry a godly man, and you can raise your kids to serve Him, and God's going to do great things through you. Start speaking. If you're not already doing it, to begin today, start speaking these words into the hearts of your children. Yeah, you got to correct them. I understand. I think last time we were together, we talked about discipline. You got to do that too. We understand all of that. Speak the words that will edify and help them to grow. And they went into their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah, so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. But if that step of faith had never been taken in the first place, if she had never made that vow to the Lord, if you'll just give me a boy, I will lend him to you all the days. There was no more promise made for additional children. But then when she put that faith of hers out there, you see, God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we can ask or think. To the natural mind, a barren womb was a barren womb. She had lived with this for many, many years, but in her desperation, she called out to Jehovah God and did everything that she knew to do. And she stepped out there by faith and said, I don't have anything, but if you'll give me a boy, I'll give everything to you. I'll give everything into your care, oh God. And if all that I ever see is just get to see that little boy one time a year, and if I'm never blessed with any other children, still yet, I'm going to honor my vow. I'm going to honor my vow. Mothers, please don't ever speak out this statement, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. When you're trying to raise kids who love the Lord, your role is of a worth that cannot even be calculated. But if you don't understand your value in the eyes of God, how can you see the value in raising godly children? Society will try to sell you that bill of stinking goods. It will, that all you are, you're not qualified to do anything else. That is the highest calling. The highest calling, and that's not lip service. You are the heart of the home. You're the heart of the home. One of the things that fights against us so heavily, and moms, you're going to have to guard against this, and that's busyness. In the course of a week, if you had a $100 bill for everybody that came up to you and said, I'm so busy or I'm so tired. Yeah. We might could all pull it together and finish the building right. I hear that all the time. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. We're supposed to have more stuff to keep. Yeah. It was in the 40s or 50s, they called them labor-saving devices. Dishwashers and whatever things, they're supposed to save time, but yet we get busier and busier and busier. It's the hallmark of our world. But busyness is the enemy of peace. Let's count my blessings a little bit this week. I told, I think it was Michael and Aaron and Heath, we were all together. Wasn't too long ago, I didn't have any associate ministers. I mean, it was just on me every service, and that's fine. I love to preach, but it can wear on you at times. You need to take in too. I said, now I got calculating. I've got 7, and I know this. I know, Brother Benj, that God does not place these kind of riches into my care for them just to sit, be able to preach once every 3 to 6 months. God doesn't do that.
That's right.
God doesn't place them there for that kind of purpose. God has purposes in mind, or He would not place them there.
Amen.
A family that's in chaos, everybody's running off to do their own thing, it creates instability and insecurity in a child's heart. You got to learn to put the brakes on. You got to learn to put the brakes on. My family can tell when I get afraid. If there's too much on my desk, too much on my plate, I'll start getting, no, too much. Isaiah 26:3, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. Sometimes we have to eliminate even good things out of our lives to make time for the great things. It's a good thing. It's not sinful. In fact, it's good. But is it great? Is it great? Sometimes you have to even whittle off the good to allow time for the great. The great should take its proper place. Mom, you are the daily tone setter in the home. Your home is to be a training ground where spiritual lessons are taught and reinforced. You are the one who can create an atmosphere of acceptance and a place of peace and an environment of joy. Say no to some things if you need to. They don't have to be involved in every extracurricular activity. I think saw a clip of Stephen Furtick not long ago, and a little while back, and he was kind of hitting on this subject a little bit. He said, Johnny's not going to go pro. We got to have Johnny involved in soccer and baseball. And there's no money to send him to youth camp because we bought all this equipment for... Is it safe to come out yet? Came back. I saw. I can't tell all the things that I saw, but just going to youth convention is interesting, and you really ought to stay around young people. All of a sudden, they walked with him no more. You really ought to keep yourself around young people. You really ought to keep in touch with them. They're quite interesting. Your young person, well, they aren't going to start dating until they're 30. Please. I mean, if you believe that one, come on. No, they start looking around a lot younger than you think. And you can tell them not to look. They're going to look anyhow. And you ought to be thanking God if they're a little girl that in the day that we're living. You ought to be thankful if they're a little girl that they're looking at little boys. And if you ought to be thankful if they're a little boy that they're looking at little girls. You ought to be thankful for that. Yeah, I mean, there's a timetable and there's guardrails and things of that nature that we need to teach them. Some things are appropriate at certain ages and some aren't. But don't try to keep it clamped up and shut down and all this kind of nonsense. You're not dating until you're 21. And all, that's nonsense. They'll rebel against you. They know it's nonsense. They know it's ridiculous. I want to take my kids to youth convention. I know we still got several young ones here. We got some that are on the verge. And, youth camp will be coming up in June, so it's not get your Christmas done and then start saving for youth camp. Age 12, that they can go when they're 12. And that's their rule. That's not our rule. But they can go at 12. Send them. When we were at youth camp, I think it was before we were getting ready to go to the first service that night. And walked out to get in the van, and lo and behold, there was Raymond Woodward standing right there. He was just waiting for them to come and get him for service, and we just started talking to him, and it just, Raymond Woodward. And just the kindest man, nice, sweet, just wonderful spirit. And he told us, he said, I really don't know if they've gotten the right person for this. He's well known, widely known as a great teacher. And he can preach. Widely known as a deep teacher. He said, I really don't know if they've got the right person for this. Brother Woodward, I think you'll do great. I'm telling you, he preached. And I believe it was Thursday. Y'all there Thursday night? I believe it was Thursday night that the presence of God, Brother Ben, swept over that auditorium. And I didn't look at it, but I would have to guess it was probably a good 2 hours that it was just a roar of praise and prayer going up to God from those young people. It's like nothing that I had ever seen before. Like nothing I'd ever been in before. There's a hunger inside of these young people.
Yes.
Now remember, they're still young, and we got to work with that. There is a hunger, Sister Ashley, inside of these young people like nothing I have ever seen before in my life. It was an absolute roar of seeking after God for about 2 hours. Brother Woodward, of course, he's just trying to be obedient, and every so often you can see, I mean, he was like a worm in hot ashes. He was trying to be obedient. He knew he was supposed to, and he would step up kind of close to the pulpit. He just, there's no way. No way. There's no way. Proverbs 31 and 28. Her children arise up and call her blessed. In the Hebrew, that's ashar. It simply means this: to be level, to go forward, to be honest, to be proper. Be real to your kids. Again, they know that you're not perfect, but be real. When you do fumble the ball, there's nothing wrong with telling them that, kids, I messed up on that one. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. But don't make excuses for it. And don't justify it. And don't point the finger at somebody. Well, I might have done this, but they're doing that. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Another key factor, if you are, and I'm going to be hitting in more than one area. I know the homes that we're dealing with today. I know that we have parents that are together. I know we've got single parents. I know we've got blended families. I understand that's where we are today. So we got to deal with where we are. We can't deal with where we want to be necessarily. We got to deal with where we are. We got to start from there. A key factor in creating a stable atmosphere is mom's relationship with her husband, with the dad, or with the husband. It can be not necessarily the dad. It can be the husband, if there's one there in the home. Next to your relationship with Jesus, ladies, your relationship with your husband should be top priority even before your children. That sets a precedent in the home. God tarries, everything transpires like we expect that it will. The kids will leave the home one day, but you will still be there. And that needs to be stable. Needs to be stable. That will put something inside of them that they will translate into something spiritual. They'll start seeing that spiritual value system. They're very smart. They learn very quickly what type of relationship that parents have. When we find true peace and joy in our marriages, these values will be communicated to our kids, and they will look for that in their lives. Don't buy into, I think I hit this somewhat. Let me try to nail it. Don't buy into the current trend to have your children involved in an excessive amount of activities, because it will wear all of you out. Instead, be a calming presence in their lives that provides structure, and they will sense that home is a safe place to be. Guard your family time. Again, there needs to be things that we say no to.
Right.
Give everyone in the family a chance to breathe. We need time to convey lessons to our kids, and they need time to absorb them. Motherhood contains, we all know this, it's a list of chores, things that have to be done. But the real substance of motherhood happens in between the washing of the dishes and the doing of the laundry. A godly mother is there when a child needs a listening ear or a word of comfort. Sometimes they need a stern glance, or more than that. Sometimes they need a reassuring hug. Sometimes they need a prayer from your heart. Sometimes it's appropriate to just grab them by the hand. Let's ask Jesus about that right now. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer right at this moment, but Jesus does. They need to see that you have an accountability system in your life, that you're looking to a higher level. And indeed that He is there to help us. This world's a tough place. And kids are mean. They can be. And you put them out in schools a lot of times. You know, there's that pecking order that seems to take place. Not everybody's kind and sweet, and thankfully there's a ever-growing awareness of bullying and so forth, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. They're kids that are in ISS, in-school suspension, because they bullied somebody. Well, that's appropriate. You need to be in ISS or something or other. You need to be somewhere. You need to be giving some thought to what you did. It needs to be sent that's not proper. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. But kids can be very mean. They can. They can be tough. But where you have a voice, and there's a time in their lives where they try to make you believe that they're listening to almost nothing that you've got to say. It's at that stage where they're trying to start cutting the apron strings and establishing their independence, but they so look to you. They may want you to believe that. They may not say it. Oh, there's going to be a time in their life. The last thing that you're probably going to hear out of their mouth is, oh, we value you and mother so much, or you and dad so much, and your relationship with one another and your relationship with God. They're probably not going to say that, but they're watching. They're watching. You need to be that voice of affirmation in their lives. There needs to be no doubt that you have your child's back. Not a rubber stamp on them that when they're doing wrong, that you alibi for them, but that you love them. That you love them and that you're there for them. Motherhood is a partnership with God. We need Him. We need Him. It involves helping shape the next lifetime. It involves helping shape that lifetime that is still out in front of them to represent Him. 1 Samuel 1:27, these are Hannah's words. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of Him. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. That ought to be what we do. We may not literally take our children by the hand and take them over to the Dotson's house. I've only got so much room, okay? I love them, but but bring them to God's house. Bring them to God's house. And could I ask this of you? If you feel that I'm worthy, if you feel like that my family's worthy and the leaders that we put in this church are worthy, entrust your children into our hands from time to time. We'll have safeguards put in place. We want all of that. Certainly that your children, we know the world that we live in. We understand all of that. And while I'm thinking about it, all of our teachers need to get your background checks in right away. New Year's coming, that'd be a good time to get all that wrapped up. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. Oh God. When you bring your kids up to be dedicated to, how many of you ever did that, went through that? We did. To take your children up and you dedicate them. You know, when we did that to Heath and Deshaun, I don't know if I know he was regular at saying this, but Brother Carpenter would often tell parents now, this child, when he'd hand them back, he'd say, now this child is not yours anymore. It's God's. God could call this child as a missionary to somewhere. Some people are Indian givers. Did you know that? When they like the ceremony, you know, they don't want to be the odd family in the church. You know that have you had your kids dedicated yet? Well, no, we just attend church here. We really don't want to trust God with our kids. You know, nobody wants to say that. But they're Indian givers. They stand up there and oh, they look so pious and yes, we're giving our children. No. Well, I got one family in mind and I could have a lot in mind if I give it some thought. Oh, wanted to dedicate all their children to God. And here they came. And I don't know, how many months did they last after that? Yeah, not many. Well, you Indian giver, you didn't mean that. You took that child back from out of the protective arms of God when He has a great plan for him. And if we do have it, hear me today, if we do get them back, and I'm believing, Sister Brandy, I've touched a lot of kids in this area since I've been here. Some of them may come, I'm believing. Some of them follow us on social media. Kids, and they're young adults, maybe adults now. They follow us. I see them, Samuel. They follow. There's still something going on there inside of them. They don't want that tie to be completely cut. I see that connection is still. I'm believing by the grace and help of God that they're going to be back one day and they're going to be sitting in God's house. But here's the sad truth of it. We're going to have to work with what's left. We won't have as much to work with. And God can transform. I'm not limiting God by any stretch of the imagination. And He can use testimonies from people that have been out in the gutter. But by and large, we won't have as much to work with as if people would have just kept their kids in God's house to begin with and keep the scars off of them and keep all of the mess off of them and all the stuff that they have to deal with in their minds. Keep them in God's house. Keep them in God's house. When you don't know exactly how to handle a situation with your children, ask God for wisdom. James 1:5, if any of you, that would be us, lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not. That means He's not going to rail at you when you ask Him for help. He's not going to say, you idiot, why didn't you get this 10 years ago? He's going to help you if you ask for help with an honest heart. Pray for your children daily. You can stand with me. Ask the Lord to help you understand what's going on in their hearts. They don't. I have a problem figuring out what's going on in myself enough. I need God's help. I need Him to help me clarify things and put things in the right order. Understand things. If I have trouble understand what's going on inside of me, goodness knows I need help to understand what's going on inside of my kids. Try to take them at the stage of life that they're in. Don't expect them to act 25 if they're not. They don't know how. They haven't got there yet. Remember where they are. Ask God to help you put that in your mind. God will help us to see them for what they're going to be, not necessarily for where they are right now. They are incredible. Where they are right now is full of incredible potential. Potential like what we have never even seen before. But it's up to us to refine that. Hear me this morning? And to keep them in God's presence. Feeling the touch of God. Exposed to His Spirit. Exposed to His Word. A great sculptor can have all the potential that he needs in a block of granite, marble, whatever, to make a great statue. I don't remember if it was Da Vinci or Michelangelo. I think it was one of the famous artists. Someone asked him, You start out with this great piece of stone right here, but yet you can make this sculpture out of it. Said, how do you do that? And the artist responded and said, oh, it's quite simple. I just simply chip away everything that doesn't look like what I want it to be. I don't know how to do all this. But I know if I get them in the presence of the Lord, and if I keep them there, that He's there to help me.